Let me start by quoting a famous and wonderful Hindu philosopher and religious figure, namely Buddha. Buddha, who arises and is educated in Delhi at a wonderful Hindu temple there. I visited it, it's fantastic. Buddha has the following quote, which I urge all of you to reflect upon. And that quote is that every journey begins with but a single step. And we might also alter that notion just a little bit to restate it in the following way. Every journey begins and continues with but a single step. All of us participating in this workshop today will have our lives changed by the considerations, the thoughts, the ideas for innovation, but also the ideas for what I might call informed continuity in research libraries. I am looking forward to the results of all of your deliberations and your considerations of these various speakers and their presentations, the questions and answers, the communication from individuals and from the whole group as indicators of new possibilities, new developments that we might consider, we should consider. So this workshop will create a new team. It's going to be a highly distributed team. And the team members will then, I hope, in turn, create new teams at their institutions and in their associations. So now let me turn to what we might call trends in digital library development. And of course, these trends, of which there are about 10, I present to you on the basis of our experiences at Stanford over the last 30 years, and really before that, but particularly over the last 30 years. And let me point out also that the Geo Institute, its library, and the Geodigital Library are all meant to be modeling institutions, modeling services, prototyping new methods, new combinations of old methods, new thoughts, and testing those prototypes in collaboration with the Stanford libraries and the Stanford University. We are all in this particular constellation recognizing that maybe our best contribution will be modeling, will be creating at the level of the Geo Institute an organization that might produce new models of organization, new models of research, new models of interdisciplinary work, new models of teamwork, new models of teaching and learning that may be useful to India and may be interesting and of significance to the rest of the world. And in this context, it's important to realize that this modeling business means that there has to be some very intense work by teams, perhaps even small teams, 5 to 10 people, with bits and pieces of the work being undertaken by those members, but the general consideration being undertaken by a team or teams. The point is that as we do our work as professionals, and I'm going to start talking about these trends in just a second, the notion of interdisciplinary collaborative approaches with teams of co-equals, but different specialties, make a huge difference. And as these applications, these organizational constructs, these methods, these philosophical constructs are built in prototype fashion, they eventually could be useful and spread to others. And others might provide feedback and work with one another to perfect, extend, elaborate these methods in support of the larger mission which is to make possible for people to have lives of significance in and of themselves, in their own family and community constructs, but also in terms of confronting some of the difficult challenges that are now in front of us. We've all had difficult challenges over the long histories of our nations. And I remind you, I hardly need to remind you, that the history of India goes back several millennia, 5 millennia. You all carry that tradition. We need to extend that tradition as well as modify it on an ongoing basis for the future in order to confront some seriously difficult challenges facing all of mankind, not just in India. I'll come back to that later today. So, service at Geo Institute, in the Geo Library, the Geo Digital Library, as a model builder, a prototyper for testing and for responses from people who make use of the prototypes to improve them. And second, the important idea of teamwork, internal teamwork, as well as external teamwork, teamwork across institutions, mixed teams. It's been very successful at Stanford and elsewhere. It will be very successful at Geo and in India. So, several truisms, 10 of them. I'm sorry I don't have a smart slide for you, but here's what they are. The first is that building research libraries, their collections, both virtual, i.e. digital, and real, physical, as an activity never stops. We're always in the act of assembling new materials for new research, sometimes stimulating that research for new teaching and for new learning, and indeed for supporting lifelong learners. And the combination of the traditional materials, the physical materials, with the digital materials actually spells strength. Some people believe that everything that's needed is already on the web and easily accessible, but we know differently. We know that it's not. It's an end game that we might aspire to, but fundamentally we have to understand our own traditions, our own history, and even that recent history that's represented in documents that may be physical. Certainly recent documents are also digital, but are arcane or hidden or deliberately kept from the general populace. We as librarians and documentarians need to collect this material, collect archival collections, collect images and data sets and text sets for use in research and teaching and learning. And to the best of our ability, we need to anticipate the needs of researchers and teachers and learners, including especially lifelong learners. Because once we've had the benefit of what we might call an organized curriculum and organized research, where there's consideration of the past and of the future by professors and other instructors and researchers, we need to build on that, and we need to stimulate that. We need to take advantage of it, and we need to do so on an ongoing basis. And as you will hear from these many presenters over the course of the coming days, there are lots of opportunities and also lots of challenges in that very work. So my first point is that building research libraries never stops, and it's not just digital, and it's not just physical, and it's not just published works, it's unpublished works, manuscripts, archives, and the like. And indeed, in many cases, it's also physical materials and images of physical materials, as well as what we might call artworks, virtual and digital artworks, and other expressions, cultural expressions. My second point is this, and it goes to the point of teamwork, but also on the dependence of our libraries, archives, and museums on informed decisions made by subject specialists, by curators, and their colleagues in acquisitions, cataloging, public services, especially reference services, and digital and physical archives, in combination with our excellent library, archival, museum, IT specialists, engineers, developers, who work hand in glove with us to bring our new acquisitions into discovery environments and into storage and archival situations where these materials, virtual and actual, may be delivered in support of curricula, of courses, in support of individual considerations as students and researchers write new papers, and in support of the long-term meaning of what it means to be an educated person in a dynamic society. And this is where, once again, the lifelong learning aspects come into play. Let me remind you that there's a wonderful social science, I would say, principle, which goes to the point that most of us change either careers or our work at an institution or among institutions or in our specialties roughly every 5 to 10 years. And each time we change our employers, change our specialty, change our approaches, we need to gather information in order to be successful in the sense of being effective in our work, in support of our mission and in consolidation with others of the grand mission in support of the lives of our fellow citizens, whether of a nation or of the world at large. So subject specialists and curators in our context at Stanford spend a lot of their time anticipating needs by acquiring, before they're called upon, materials in support of research and teaching and learning, including lifelong learning. This anticipation is quite important, but we also have to have systems where if we've missed something, we can quickly acquire what we've missed in order to support the ongoing work of our colleague professors as researchers and as instructors. And we need to make use of those quick response mechanisms in order to be supportive of the scholars in training, the graduate students and postdocs. So now I turn to several other trends that come under the heading of advancing libraries, including especially digital libraries, in support of formal and informal instruction and research. The pandemic has created what we might call a huge challenge. And ironically as well, it's created a situation where, in effect, a lab for providing library collections and services in support of research, instruction, and learning has been conducted. While millions of people lost their lives to this terrible COVID-19 virus. But nevertheless, it has been a lab. And one of the first points I need to make to all of you is the rapid prototyping of services in support of remote instruction by way of e-collections, e-reserves, digitization services when there wasn't an e-version of something that was required by an instructor or a scholar in the making, and generally supplementing in e-form the vast collections that some of us have, but were not accessible because of our need to stay apart from one another for months, and really for most of a year and a half, so that we didn't transmit this terrible virus to one another. The use of e-services, e-collections, e-reserves in a frictionless way to our patrons, to our clients, has been a terribly important result of this lab. And it's a result, along with the fact of remote work of our library staff and the ways that we have supported that remote work, that I see as a positive outcome of this terrible pandemic that has killed millions of people. The second principle that I want to point out to you, and it's a terribly important one, is that the fundamental basis of advances by researchers, whether in higher education institutions or in research institutions by themselves or in industry settings, involves communication of results, and then a kind of dialogue between those who created the results or reported the results and those who have read the reports and are perhaps attempting to apply the results or at least comprehend the results. This dialogue, this communications circuit is terribly important for the advancement of humankind. Scholarship, scientific, social scientific, humanistic, is incomplete without this dialogue between the scholars, their students, their formal students, and their informal students, informed people, intellectual people anywhere, and especially lifelong learners. So what we in our profession as librarians and archivists, documentalists, have to provide for is constant engagement, constant contributions, and providing the means by which this communication might occur. Some of it as letters to the editor, some of it in the form of communications back to a library from a user of a library service. It is this principle of the cycle of communication between those who originate information and those who make use of it is terribly important. And I believe that every research library should provide on every web page a feedback button that enables that communication to occur. And sometimes that communication will have several hops. So a reference librarian might take the query or the demand and then send it on to others. It's very important. The next one is enabling collaboration that results in effective access to resources that an individual institution or many individual institutions may not hold, but which is held by at least one other institution. And this is where the matter of the International Image Interoperability Framework, whose architect is Tom Kramer, comes into play. This methodology, and it is rather unique actually, makes it possible for sharing of documents, sharing of images of works of art and culturally important works, including modern moving images and 3D images and so forth, in a way that doesn't affect the fundamental nature of the object, the information object, the cultural object in question. It makes possible sharing for analysis, for study, for annotations, where one person may have an insight or an opinion about a whole object, a page, an image, a portion of a page, a portion of an image, and report on it to others without changing the information object, the cultural object at all. This is one of the new features of the digital world. And once again, it's terribly important. So if we are capable of creating a vast network of cultural institutions, galleries, libraries, archives, museums, we are capable thereby of sharing valuable information and access to these cultural objects and information objects for the betterment of all. One of the Geo Institute programs that starts, I hope, we all hope, in July of this year, has to do with artificial intelligence and data science. The second program, the other program that will launch, I hope also in July, is that of digital media and marketing communications. Both of these involve access to or stimulate the creation of data sets about behaviors, about performance, about what we might call the epidemiology of use of information objects and cultural objects. These data sets and the analysis of them, and in the case of the Geo Institute, artificial intelligence is vitally linked to data sets, makes the possibility of interpretations that formerly were relatively difficult to make or even impossible, possible and active. And these data sets and artificial intelligence, this sense of what it is that the digital media provide, both good and bad, and what marketing communications might make a difference to a whole community, to a nation, to random isolated consumers, is vitally important, really fundamental in a way. Bringing those data sets, causing them to be made available, in some cases causing them to be built at all, including mashups from various data sets to make new constellations of data, makes the difference. And it is the libraries, in the case of Stanford, and I presume ultimately of the Geo Institute, that will acquire and license, or just acquire and provide an archival service, as well as a scratchpad or a digital sandbox where scholars can analyze and make use of the data sets and recover and repeat their work with variations of analysis in order to develop reports on what they've discovered that might be useful to others. So the whole notion of a data set, an image set, a text set, or a combination set is really the new wave, and a vital wave it is. We don't yet know what will be discovered, but what we do know is that there will be discoveries which formerly were frankly not possible. So this is part of the ongoing work of a university, how to develop new knowledge and then pervade it for that communication loop that I've just spoken about. Another aspect of, a vital aspect of what libraries do is that of presenting elements of their collections or elements of mashed up collections, as it were, for consumption by others. We must all understand the following construction. Scholars today must be deeply knowledgeable and completely au courant with relatively narrow fields of investigation. It's quite difficult for there to be polymaths crossing lots of disciplinary boundaries and making sense of all the knowledge that has been developed and communicated over the past centuries and even millennia. So by their nature, in order to be successful, scholars must be, as it were, a mile deep in what they comprehend, what is in the library of the mind, but only an inch wide. Librarians, archivists, documentarians, all have to have a fundamental understanding of many, many different disciplines, and even then there'll be specialists. But they cannot even begin to be a mile deep in what they comprehend. So what we say is librarians, archivists, etc., are an inch deep, but a mile wide. So the combination of understanding disciplines deeply and understanding across disciplines in a relatively shallow manner drives what we do in support of these deep scholars. The the best of them understand that and this principle and respect it. One of our roles is to make sure that naive, and now speaking in a kind of relative term, people naive in one discipline might benefit from ideas and documents, including images, of other disciplines. So once again, thanks to Tom Kramer's work with his team in the Stanford Library's digital library services and systems, has developed a exhibit application called Spotlight, which enables ordinary mortals, with a little help from some specialist staff on Tom's team, to develop digital exhibits, virtual exhibits, across all domains of knowledge: the arts, the humanities, area studies, human rights studies, and all the sciences, so that knowledge and themes in one narrow zone of our collections might be comprehended at some level, and stimulating others in other disciplines who don't have that knowledge. We have over 100 of these exhibits developed in the last few years, and many of them get thousands of hits every week. One or two of them have changed the shape of whole disciplines, and I now refer specifically to ancient, medieval, and early modern manuscript studies, all of which have changed thanks to our work on the Matthew Parker Library on the history of religion, particularly Protestant religion, in the United Kingdom from the 6th century to the 16th century. So what I'm saying is that our responsibility is not just to collect and to provide discovery possibilities for intellectual and actual physical or virtual access to our collections, to our clients, our institutional colleagues, to lifelong learners, but also to provide synthetic exhibits that gather information and present that information in support of all people gaining better understanding about certain trends, certain events in our own histories, from our own collections, that might make a difference to others. These exhibits are really important. And sometimes they're combination exhibits, both virtual and physical. The narrative of each exhibit is quite important. Oftentimes it's not explicit, but implied. This stimulates people to think and to imagine what their narrative on the basis of an exhibit might be, and how that exhibit might relate to their own experiences, including their own library of the mind, archive of the mind, as I've mentioned. An aspect of what we do internal to Stanford, and now over the last couple of 3 decades, is collaboration with other institutions who are doing interesting things, who have significant collections, who are devoted more or less to the same principles that we have in support of the improvement of humanity worldwide. These collaborations have resulted in new access to collections, new modes of sharing. I witnessed the IIIF, but also basically what might be regarded as a kind of international interlibrary lending and borrowing situation, although the borrowing might just be virtual borrowing, and in the development of methodologies, techniques, and workflows, as well as applications. Together with such wonderful libraries as that of the British Library, the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, the libraries of the National Library of Germany, the Deutsche National Bibliothek, the library at the University of Göttingen, the Bayerische Staatslibrary, the great library of Munich and Bavaria, the Vatican Library and other libraries in Italy, developing relationships with libraries in Ireland, libraries in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, great relationships in Mexico, relationships of value in Japan, and elsewhere in East Asia, especially with some of our colleagues in Australia and New Zealand, and now, thankfully, with the Geo Institute and other libraries of note, and particularly the Bandakar Manuscript Library in India, which is going to be really important to our scholars at Stanford in Indian history. Terrific relationships. These collaborations not only bring collections, but they bring other possibilities. And I mentioned now something in particular, which is only becoming interesting in a kind of research sense. Our colleagues at the Bavarian State Library, the Bayerische Staatsbibliothek, have been making use of some technology built in Germany for image recognition. And they have demonstrated to us how this image recognition application makes possible new findings that advance knowledge, that make new methodologies, new interpretations possible. This was before artificial intelligence. And now with our artificial intelligence, vast sets of images can be examined and new relationships shown. I mean, virtually shown. It's quite interesting, and I think quite important. I turn now to a matter that I've been mentioning continuously, I think, this morning, and that is how we might support and do support lifelong learning. Lifelong learning for our alumni, for our communities, for companies and industries, for families. To the extent possible, we need to balance our work in support of lifelong learners with the development of and instruction of new knowledge. But nevertheless, we have to do it. And some of that has to do with providing access, virtual access, as well as physical access to individuals and companies in exchange for the dialogue that I've earlier mentioned that has to do with what might be questioning and answering information resources or people that provide them in a productive way. Lifelong learning for those of us in the community of people who have been educated in universities and institutes is terribly important. We carry a burden for a nation. We are intended to make the lives of our fellow citizens better. We are meant to help confront major challenges, challenges such as climate change, challenges such as this current pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, challenges of history, of geography, of religious tensions. We all carry a burden, those of us educated beyond the basic education that makes possible life in these times. Everyone needs to be able to do arithmetic. Everyone needs to be able to read. Everyone needs to be able to talk with one's neighbors and learn from those conversations. Beyond that, we have responsibilities. And it seems to me that lifelong learning is one of those attributes that has to be instilled, and methods for judgment, critical judgment of what's going on around one, whether locally or distant and in some distant fashion, is a key aspect of what a successful education pervades to individuals. How do we critically judge what's going on around us and select what we might do to improve the lives of others? That has to do with lifelong learning. That has to do with us remaining successful and effective in our chosen profession or in a new profession that we approach in the middle of our lives. And this group of 60 individuals and the many people that are presenting to you offer a particularly good example of lifelong learning. We're all going to be learning from the presentations that will be made possible by this workshop. We will all benefit either directly or indirectly, either immediately or over time or both. For the work by the study groups and then their reports to the whole group and beyond in the course of this week. We are all lifelong learners. So I ask you to be self-reflective about what's going on here and understand why lifelong learning is important to this group, but also to everyone else like us who are no longer 22 years old or 25 years old, but are somewhat older and still learning and still contributing. I want to close with number 10. Number 10 may be obvious, but it is the work of people in research libraries and archives and museums never to stop gathering, elaborating, and providing both wide and deep collections. These are not necessarily large collections, they could be, but they should be evolving collections. They can't be static. They can't be static because we are not rocks. We are humans. We solely have this self-consciousness, this possibility of reflecting on what's occurring and putting our knowledge and our appreciation, our apprehension, comprehension of what's going on around us, whether immediately around us or at some distance, including around the world, putting our reflections and our best thoughts about how to interpret our holdings and how to document what's going on so that maybe, just perhaps, we don't continue as a species to make mistakes, to make challenges appear that were unnecessarily appearing, that hinder relationships, hinder the existence of the species at all. We have major, major challenges facing us. And it is the role of librarians, archivists, information scientists, museum people in developing collections of relevance and also predictive collections so that these grand challenges can be met. At least we can attempt to meet them. The development of the vaccines, which, by the way, are being manufactured in India at a rate unlike any other country in the world for India, but also for the rest of the world. All of that knowledge was made available through the work of people in research institutions, universities, institutes, pharmaceutical companies, medical research in private institutions, and communicated through publishing often, but not solely. Data provided, and still data being gathered, and I hope forever, that enables new vaccines, new boosters that confront the terrible challenge of these variant versions of this COVID-19 flu virus, which could kill millions of more people if we don't confront them with these new findings. And I use this example particularly because whatever goes on in the labs, whatever goes on in populations that are affected by the COVID-19, and all human populations eventually will be affected, whatever experiences we have as a result of vaccinations or the results of people who refuse to be vaccinated, what happens to them are of terribly high importance to all of us. This is a single example of why documentation of this whole pandemic and the results of the science that was so quickly and effectively applied, and the engineering, especially as seen in India, in manufacturing these new models of vaccines that confront this terrible illness that has killed so many people. The point I'm making is we have an obligation as professionals to take care of that information. It's all digital. We need to have digital archives. We need to have digital hosting services, repositories that make it available to scholars and scientists, engineers around the world. This is the way we contribute to a more healthy world. Thank you all very much for your attention. I now turn this over to my friend, MG Srikumar. MG, over to you, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mike. Wonderful inputs, inspiring messages, and interesting, insightful advices. So I think we will have questions from the participants after my presentation is also over, which will complete the vision for the 21st century libraries and also our vision for geo-digital library. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So friends, let me start with the vision for the geo-digital library after you have heard the excellent, insightful input from Dr. Mike. In fact, the whole vision for geo-digital library, which is envisaged as a world-class research library, digital library, is actually his vision, along with his colleague, Mr. Tom Kramer. And I'm going to share with you the kind of strategies that what we would plan to adopt in materializing the geo-digital library, the technology architecture, and in the focus areas. So actually, to be very frank, the backdrop of this is actually the context in which we are offering the services of this digital library. We know that we are in Industry 4.0 here. We also know that this is the age of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, Internet of Things. And you can also see here, it's actually a automobile manufacturing unit of Toyota. Each car is being made by numerous, robots. You can't see any human beings here, but at the back of this entire process is human brains working, human intelligence working with the help of artificial intelligence and robotic science. So the demand at the market is Career 4.0, which reflects all these kinds of jobs requirements that are prevalent and in vogue in the market. So I think this is very, very important for us to keep in mind when we are launching our services for the benefit of our users. So when we talk about the strategies for the 21st century library, libraries are now becoming all-in-one spaces for learning, consuming, sharing, and creating and experiencing. This was already shared by our participants' presentation also. there is rapid and radical changes that has taken place in the environment. And it's a dire need and necessity for us to shift the library to the 21st century to be more meaningful and relevant. We recommend to adopt kind of a blue ocean methodology for developing the 21st century strategy for the library. Blue ocean strategy is about creating uncontested markets. I am coming to this in detail so that there is no competitions. It's a blue market. It is not a red ocean. It is a blue ocean. So you have a lot of scope for experimenting and then playing around, and then you may commit mistake, but you don't have to worry about that. But you don't have the baggage of the past or the legacy systems very much haunting you. So it epitomizes strategic agility for focusing on creating and capturing new and innovative knowledge resources, services, and inspiring learning environments. So we are looking at library not as just a place for people to come, students and faculty and researchers to come and spend their time for learning only. It is much more than that. We will come to this in detail. So towards this, I think we should pay our attention to the changing scenario. What is the future of knowledge? What's the future of path-based knowledge? What's the future of public technology and community anchor institutions such as libraries, archives, and museums, as Dr. Mike was very rightly mentioning? And then what's the future of learning spaces, like libraries again? So how is it going to be evolving and transforming? So what's the future of attention? So this is one of the major challenges all of us are facing. There are two major challenges before us. One is the declining attention span of the users. And then the second one is very known to all of us, the diminishing footfalls in the libraries. So that we don't have to worry much, because the footfall need not be always physical. The footfall can be always digital also. I think we all will agree that our digital resources are being heavily used. So there are evidences for that. So the library's imperatives for agility and resilience is very obvious, because it allows the organization for strategizing the library systems to face or overcome the odds and challenges. It equips the human resources with it empowers the human resources with a shared vision and a shared purpose. What I'm trying to bring out here is that you don't have to be very traditional. I mean, the command and control may not be there. There is a mission which will be shared by. There is a task which will be shared by the entire human resources or the staff of the library. Participatory in every mission as against the traditional command and control model. So everyone is participating in the mission, vision, and goal of the libraries, and then equip the team library to resiliently respond to threats and make timely, effective, sustainable changes that generate competitive advantage. So this is very, very important. So I think agility and resilience is the hallmark of the day, and it comes with capacity building only. And then the changing landscape of the learning environment, because as I was mentioning, libraries are now becoming very welcoming ambience, providing very welcoming ambience. And it's time for us to redefine, re-engineer, reimagine the library, a place or a space or a combination of both in a meticulously blended way. Then we should provide seamless access, as Mashelkar sir was mentioning. Serendipity is actually a hallmark of a library when you are, so that has to be preserved. But then you should also provide seamless navigation, seamless discovery and delivery facilities, and then collaborative learning spaces we should all offer, because it is not just for knowledge consumption. People are now aspiring, or they are coming to the library. They have to be provided an ambience where you can construct knowledge, you can create knowledge, you have to co-create knowledge. So collaborative social learning ambience, and it becomes a learning hub and a learning garden, and it becomes a place for idea exchange, and a vast corpus of knowledge through high-end collections and services, as Dr. Mike was very rightly mentioning. Then the research library supports for open access and open science. I am coming to this interesting features that we are finding these days. And then the digital scholarship and literary skills, research support workshops that the library, an array of workshops, an array of such user engagement services that can be rolled out. And we have for this workshop also, we have brought the BITS learning experience for that. And then the research data support, research productivity, impact support, etc., which can always help us retain our users with us. We always have a connect with us that will help us improve the footfall as well as the digital footfall in the library. And then the innovation labs and incubators and entrepreneurships and maker spaces that we can offer. All these are interesting things, hallmarks of the 21st century changing landscapes. And then multi-use of space and services. Space which was used for one purpose in the morning can be differently used for afternoon and can be entirely differently used for the evening services. And as far as the geo-digital library vision is concerned, it's a very ambitious vision that is envisaged to provide access to quality educational resources, research resources to the remotest user in India. This is the ultimate overarching objective. And then we have, as you know, India is a very vast country. Our educational systems is one of the largest in the world, with the 50,000 plus universities and colleges, 1.5 million plus teachers, and then 20 million plus students. To what extent our teachers are up to the mark, and to what extent our students are actually employable, which is being considered as one of the major determinants for success, is something which we all have to keep in mind. And to this goal, we are, as it was already mentioned, we are tied up with, we are having the mentoring that is coming from Stanford libraries. And then the key highlights is that we will have partners nationally and internationally. We'll have resources which will be national and international in particular. And then we have in-house developed content, and then we will deploy a lot of open source applications, open source technologies. So these are only indicative that we are mentioning here. And then the geo-digital library will have 4 pillars: the teaching, learning, the research center, the entrepreneurship cell, and the innovation and creativity ambience, which will promote innovation and creativity in every sense of the word. So the geo-digital library will be a state-of-the-art research library that will enable multidisciplinary research. And then it will have special collections and archives reflecting arts, culture, and heritage and history of the country. It will be the intellectual hub of the university. It will be an epicenter for research on a national and global, for addressing national and global challenges. It will be the foundation for lifelong learning, and it will evolve as a national resource, not just as an institutional resource, but it is ultimately envisioned to evolve as a national resource. And the institute intends to develop a hybrid model digital and physical library. Since its inception itself, the library will play an important role in knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination, and knowledge certification, as it is very rightly suggested and advised by Dr. Mike. And then it will be the intellectual temple of the Geo Institute, Geo University. And it will be a 21st century world-class library, which will provide access to quality education resources, research material. And as it was mentioned, it is being set up under the able guidance of Dr. Michael Keller and his team. So now let us reimagine the role of the 21st century library. It will be a hub of knowledge consumption, collaboration, and creativity. It will provide frontline research support, academic support. It will be the center for motivation, imagination, and innovation. And it will provide state-of-the-art technology, special collections and archives and displays and exhibitions. And then the nature of it will nurture the culture of entrepreneurship, ventures, incubators, startups, etc. So the library is not the traditional meaning of the library, traditional activities of the library. It will be much more than the traditional purpose of the library. And then let us make a mission statement that the library will always help achieve our users, our stakeholders, advance through advanced knowledge through research and innovation. And then it will be providing all sorts of seamless guided learning. And then it will inspire, it will always inspire curiosity in its users. And then the guiding philosophy is that, it is being launched as a greenfield setup. So it has got the unique opportunity to build a digital library from scratch without hindrance of any legacy systems. And it has got seamless digital experience with a good fusion of technology and information that focuses on providing a quality user experience. It is envisaging future-proof technology. It envisions planning future-proof technologies using a mix of best-in-class, new-age open-source technology and commercial applications. So the focus is, the concentration is more on using open-source technology wherever possible, and play a pioneering role in new-age technologies with the vision to champion the role of global leaders. And then partnerships will be there with the global collaborators, with the best libraries in India and abroad. And we will also be participating, collaborating with the frameworks like IIIF, which was very much mentioned in the earlier presentation by Dr. Mike, and which is a consortium of various institutions that enable large transfers between them using some specific APIs, specialized APIs to ensure standardization. And regarding the infrastructure and facilities, the best-in-class digital facilities will be provided. So the institute will have excellent digitalization and preservation facilities. And then alternate learning spaces will be there. The space required for physical learning resources may be low, but more space will be provided for study halls, discussion rooms, etc., collaborative projects, etc. And then there will be a multidisciplinary team. That is to say, as it was already mentioned, our role as librarians are moving beyond administrative functions. So we should also serve as subject matter experts for conducting research. We are very much doing that. We have to further strengthen such services for the benefit and for capturing the imagination of our user community. So we will have even PhDs in the library helping as subject matter experts, that is to say. And then we will have a high caliber team with quality technology, content collection, and curator team that will work closely with the academic and the research team. So I would like to have your attention, invite your attention to Albert Einstein here, when he said, "I never teach my pupils, I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn." I think this is the most interesting, it's an evergreen capturing, that we provide the conditions in which they can learn. That is actually going to be long-lasting and enduring. And then the library metaphor you can see here, it is going to be a perfect blend of the physical and the digital resources and knowledge that will be seamlessly provided by the library for the user community. And then the focus areas that the digital library, geo-digital library will be offering will be collections. Collections are the core for any digital library or any library for that matter. That will be the building block of the library services. And then all these collections, all these resources will be provided with the help of meticulously designed, implemented, and customized discovery and delivery facilities. And we will have, as it was mentioned, excellent spaces, over-to-over reading spaces, a lot of other spaces for collaborative learning and community learning facilities. And we will have research enablement services. We will have research enablement services for every stages of their research life cycle. I'm sorry. And then we will have research data management facilities available So that's very important because a lot of data will be collected, collated, and curated by our researchers from time to time. And unfortunately, these data are going unnoticed once the research gets published. So the idea, the objective of the library is to carefully collect those data and archive it for future use, so that you don't have to reinvent wheels when you, after a couple of years or maybe after some time, you come out with the same research projects or similar research projects, so that you can use those data very usefully. And then a lot of digitization will be there. We will be collaborating with a lot of institutions in the country as well as outside the country as much as possible for bringing in such collections which needs digitization and long-term preservation, which will be shared with the host institutions, so that they will also benefit out of that. And then the Digital Scholarship Center will be there to promote such advanced scholarship services, as we can imagine, with the help of what are called artificial intelligence, robotic science, and machine learning facilities. And then there will be an entrepreneurship cell, because now the libraries focus is moving from just being a consumption center to creation center. Means you will have a lot of knowledge created, and once the knowledge is created, being a proactive library, we can also provide entrepreneurship facilities or entrepreneurship opportunities, provide maker spaces, provide venture capital facilities, provide incubator facilities, etc., for our alumni, for our ongoing students, our enrolled students, as well as our faculty, or jointly coordinated by the students and faculty and services like that. And then, very interestingly, we are also planning to provide a self-service culture right from day one when they get enrolled. So that means in the library, when they come for library instructions or library orientations, that time itself we will tell them that this is what the library is, these are the facilities, these are the services, and you as a proactive user or a very active user of the library should be in a position to make all the services independently. So we will empower, enable, and support all our users for self-service. And as far as the platform, digital library platform, digital technology platform is concerned, very, very interesting architecture, very interesting software architecture, hardware architecture is being planned. These you can see multiple layers of technology being forecast here, are being planned here. You have integrated library systems, mainly looking at the metadata management here, metadata loading and management. We have the integrated library system planned, supported by Folio. And then we have electronic resource management supported by Folio. And then we have, for the time being, we have knowledge base link results, supported by EBSCO link. And then the pattern interface again supported by Folio. And then we have digital repository archives hosted on Haiku, a very interesting service. I mean, you're going to get all these inputs in the days to come. And then which will be, this repository will comprise ETDs, that is electronic thesis and dissertations, institutional repository, digital collections, and what we are creating, and then the digitization workflows. So this will be a very interesting repository comprising of these very invaluable resources, and it will take care of all the workflows that are, you can imagine for a digital library, depositing, delivery, the file systems, management, the apps, and then the archiving part of it. And then coming to the library website, we are trying to, as it was already mentioned, the vision is that as much as possible, we will use open source platforms. So here, Folio is an open source platform. Here, Haiku is an open source platform. And then we have the content management system envisaged from Drupal. And then, of course, LibGuides is not, for the time being, this is commercial software we are planning. EBSCO Discovery is a commercial platform. So these are the two commercial platforms what I can see here. And then all the other services, including Blacklight. So for Discovery, we are planning For content curation, we are planning LibGuides, which will give excellent, manuring, subject browsing by the users. So navigation, what is called seamless navigation using these services, and then the discovery, the web scale discovery service from EBSCO, and then the custom discovery interfaces, which will add value, advanced custom services, especially from the part of discovery by Blacklight, again, an open source platform, and then the quick search with the help of vendor applications. And then we have special collections and exhibits on archives, as it was already mentioned. Two special collection projects are being envisaged. So the Indian arts architecture and Indian arts architecture and history is one, and then science and history is one. The other is actually 100 years history of Mumbai city. So these two collections are going to be interesting archives, that special collection projects that the institute will be. It's already started and it is in progress. And then regarding the research enablement, as I was mentioning, interesting services come, as recommended by the Association of Research Libraries, US. We have, the framework, the library research library impact framework suggests that libraries should be providing research support and through the entire scholarly life cycle of our researchers. And we should provide maximum, endless teaching, learning supports to our students for their success. And then we should provide vast collections. We should provide the interesting physical spaces, so that how does the library help to increase research productivity and impact? How do library spaces facilitate innovative research, creative thinking, and problem solving? Does the library contribute to equitable student outcomes and an inclusive learning environment? Does the library special collections specifically support and promote teaching, learning, and research? Do the library's collections play a role in attracting and retaining top researchers and faculty into the institution? I think these are all wonderful introspections that we can always keep on asking ourselves, so that our libraries will be at the cutting edge of services, so that our users are always happy. So I think you can take these details from the ARL website. And anyway, we will be sharing the presentation, so that and then the research library supporting open access. So open access at every point, every stage of open access. Because of time, I'm not going into. So open access can be doing wonderful support to the entire academic and research community, and as well as the implementation of open access in our libraries. We can have self-archived preprint archive setup with the help of interesting softwares. We have DSpace, we have ePrints, we have many other softwares which are available, but DSpace and ePrints are quite common in India. You can try that. And then we have there will be presentations on other softwares coming up, so it will be very interesting. And then you can also have, the OA policy mandated by the Government of India, the Department of Biotechnology, DST, in 2014 can be followed by all of us, so that you can prepare, you can set up such archives, meeting the various stages of publishing, like preprints or a published paper after embargo, as it is recommended by the Sherpa Romeo project. That's very important. There is a project called Sherpa Romeo project by University of Southampton. University of Southampton, I believe. So they are recommending this what is called project Sherpa Romeo, which will give the publishers recommendations for archiving of their. So almost 90% of the leading publishers are participating in it, and it is always follow the golden path. So these are green roads. This is the golden road to open access. That means born open access materials that is published in journals which are open access. There are exclusive open access journals as well as hybrid journals which are providing what is called open access articles as well as non-open access or told articles. So I think you can refer to such directories like DOAJ, etc. That is Directory of Open Access Journals and such services, so that you'll be in a position to bring in those resources also along with your subscribed resources in your libraries. And then the research support, if you can just see here, because of time, I'm not focusing on, elaborating on the entire thing. From the start, from the preparation to gathering to research, the conduct of the research in progress to publishing to preservation to measuring the impact of the research. So for each and every stage of the research life cycle, I think the libraries can play a wonderful role. They can provide wonderful services like literature services or funding proposals, creating helps, and then the IPR copyright advices and related things, and then research writing or preserving that we were telling research meta management we are coming, and then research impact profiles. And this is very important. Research impact profiles creation and helping them to be, star scientists in the field, etc. Sometimes, even though they have a lot of publications and impacts, they may not be aware. They may not be able to encash that. And encashing is not for money, for getting the kind of due merit from the community and also from your profession. So that is very important. And then open science, for open science, libraries can play a wonderful evangelists, wonderful evangelists. Like as I was mentioning, for every stage of research, there is actually a open science tool promoting and fueling for open, making it more strong. And then faculty curriculum support. You can provide seamless support for faculty and for students by interacting with the learning management system people and the library providing seamless access to all the collections that we can think of these kinds of collections to the LMS or the content management.
नाही जाईना ते बरोबर हे बंद केलं ना नाही ते इथून आले असते मी
हॅलो
माझा आवाज जातोय का
Please, please mute yourselves. All participants, please mute yourselves if you're not speaking. Sorry, sir, go on.
And Geo Institute is a research university, so a lot of research will be taking place by the various departments or the various schools of the research university, be it on artificial intelligence or advanced computing or data sciences or social motivation, cellular, and then social entrepreneurship. So there are so many things that the university will be focusing on. These are indicative in nature. And then there will be a lot of labs that will be there. So what I am trying to envision here is that there will be a Center for Social Technology, Innovation and Business Incubator. So that, there will be a direct link between the academia and the library. And the library can think of hosting a Center for Social Technology, Innovation and Business Incubator, promoting business entrepreneurship, research innovation, and promotion of economic development and the national progress in the long term. So we can provide entrepreneurship cell, we can provide industry engagement, we can provide venture capital, and then we can be a research and technology part. We can have startup companies in the incubation center, and we can also act as one of the catalysts for technology transfer to the industry concern. between the academia and the industry. So I think you have a lot of examples in the country: National Innovation Foundation, Reliance Innovation Leadership Center, Honeybee Network, Startup India. So I think the country is also promoting, and then the GIAN Center. So the country is also very much moving forward with the Startup India kind of things and Skill India kind of things. And I think we can be a very interesting partner in all these interesting efforts and goals of the government of India also. So I think I will stop here. Thank you for your patient listening.